Welcome to Pixel Pizza,
Did she say pizza?
your ultimate source for chiptunes, video game talk, and pepperoni. Delivered to you from Los Angeles and into the digital cyberspace of the 2020s.
Pizza power!
That's right, one super giant pizza.
I want a large, thick crust with double cheese, ham, pepperoni.
Hey, where's my pizza?
Pizza time.
Hey, howdy! Come on in for Pixel Pizza 11. That is right, we're keeping this train rolling with another new episode. And we are going to be speaking with a cool guest this week. As always, we got a cool guest to talk to, and this week is no exception. We are speaking with another person who was on the OG Pixel Pizza. Last week's guest, Elisa, was as well. That's right, if you may recall, Pixel Pizza originated back from 2012 to 2015 at Emerson College at the WECB radio station. And I spoke to people there. And one of the people I spoke to was a classmate of mine at Emerson. And they were exploring writing for TV and video games. And they have made a name for themselves in the indie space, working on some cool games, including the breakout hit Pixel Puzzle Makeout League. Mwah! That is a little kiss for you, but don't worry, we are not making out. This is a family show. I'm making out with the audience now. Don't worry about it, guys. Anyway, this guest is Lex Oberwetter. Very excited to be speaking with them and catching up because it's been, 7 years? 7 years since that last time we really saw each other for graduation. So exciting to reunite virtually from opposite sides of these United States. And, of course, lest we forget, we've got another musical talent to be hearing from this week. And that is going to be Kono Neko. If you're caught up on your Japanese, that means this cat. And they put out their recent Nostalgia EP. And the intro track, fittingly called Chiptune. So you're going to listen to that. I also want to issue a brief apology. In my last preamble, I mentioned a little thing about my favorite, or one of my favorite games, Kid Icarus Uprising. I said people who did not like it had weak hands. And a common complaint about that game was the difficulty of the controls. And if there were people out there listening who, had legitimate difficulty with the game, who it was physically painful for them to play because of the controls, I want to apologize if what I said was hurtful or insensitive to them. It's just, that's a criticism that people use to dismiss the game quite frequently. And as someone who loves the game, it was just something I said kind of casually. So, anyway, play Kid Icarus Uprising if those things don't affect you. And if they do, I'm sorry. So, moving on, Chiptune by Kono Neko. This is the track. Enjoy. See you with some talk after. Welcome back to Pixel Pizza. You just listened to the track Chiptune. That is the name of the track. It is a chiptune song, but it is also called Chiptune by the artist Kono Neko. And now we are here with our interview portion of the show. Very exciting. I am speaking with an old friend, an old colleague, someone I'm excited to reunite with, who has gone on to be the writer of the cult hit puzzle/visual novel game, Pixel Puzzle Makeout League. And it is Lex Oberwetter. Hey, Lex.
Hey, thank you. I like that cult hit. That
yeah,
on the inside.
That's what it seems like. It seems like it hit with an audience, and the people who play it just love it.
That's it. Yeah, we have a small handful of players, but out of those, everybody cried. So that's really that's where it works out. My mom played it, she cried. My dad played it, she cried. My girlfriend played it, she cried. So really just everybody, the waterworks on, which is just my goal. I start writing, I think, how can I make people cry though?
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's true. That started as a joke, but I did in like high school. I was like, I'm really good at being funny, but what if I could be really serious? And then I got the opportunity to do both.
Yeah, totally. That game nailed both.
Yeah.
So would you say, I mean, what I like to start with the show, and I mean, maybe you already hit on it, but when was the point in your life when you knew you wanted to work on games?
Well, I've been a gamer since I was like 5 years old. My parents, we were going overseas to Europe on vacation, and they were like, we got to do something with this 5-year-old who gets super car sick. We cannot give them a book to read on the plane. So I couldn't read it, so I don't know why I'm saying that. So they got me a Game Boy Color. And my mom always says this. She said she specifically asked to get for games where they didn't have many words in them. So no Pokemon for me because it was very low reading. I got DuckTales 2, Kirby's Dream Land 3, and Mickey, was it the Castle of Illusions, the Magic Mirror? It's whatever the Mickey game everyone talks about is on Game Boy Color.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's the only one I don't have because I guess I sold it at some point. I don't know. One of my big life regrets is I sold that Game Boy Color for $15 to GameStop. Oh. So thanks me in 1999, whatever.
Yeah, those are some rare ones now.
Yeah, so I've been a lifetime game liker. And you know, as a writer, I'm a second generation writer. My mom is a romance author. So writer as job was always a very normal thing to me. And I went to Emerson College with you. And you know, at Emerson you just meet so many different people and you get pulled into so many different projects. I actually majored in television production. That's still my day job is I work in television. But then, you know, I met the right people to let me fall, you know, writing to a certain passion. And I followed it all the way into video games. A lot of it's because I was in the right place at the right time with the right people, which I think is the most annoying thing to say to anyone out there being like, I want advice. And I'm like, I don't got none. A colleague recently asked me to talk to her son. And I was like, I can, but here's the warning. I'm going to tell him that like make friends because that's the number one way you figure these things out is you just find the good people who get you involved with stuff.
Yeah, good people and dumb luck.
Yeah, exactly. Good people, dumb luck. That's really what it comes down to. Rising tide lifts all boats.
For sure. So what would you say were some of like the big differences you encountered from, you know, going from writing to TV to writing to games?
So I think the biggest, the biggest difference is when you're writing for television, for books, because I do all sorts. I've done playwriting, TV writing, prose. I've written, you know, prose novels. I've written a lot of different stuff. The biggest difference is that there are guides for writing all that stuff, and there is no guide for writing for video games. I mean, there are guides. But there's no codified set of rules in the same way there are for other things, down to how the script for a video game works, right? Because video game industry is so I don't remember what the word is, but basically everyone has their own programs, their own systems for doing things, that there's no like regulated here's how you write for video games, and the way for film, here's how a film script works. And a film script's always going to look like this. And that's not true for video games, because it's going to be different for every project you work in. That's definitely the biggest like difference technically wise. And then I would say like creatively, even more so than with like script writing, there's a big disconnect in what I write and then what the player actually sees, right? Like I write my script out and I know that literally they're going to see those words, but I'm not in control of how fast they see them. I'm not in control of what's happening around those words. I'm not in control of the pacing with the puzzles. And I just kind of have to hope for the best and change it if it doesn't work when it happens. A lot of rewriting in the middle of things actually happening too, which was very interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know what you mean. I did QA for Spike Chunsoft when I first came out here. And I mean, one of the things I quickly learned was that with the localization, with the writing, how it appears in the context of the game isn't always going to be clear to who's writing it. And there would be a bunch of times where I would have to report back to the localization team and say, hey, this doesn't exactly work with what's actually happening on screen.
Yeah, it's nuts how much extra little work there is in the back end and behind the scenes of all writing sort of stuff. And it's something I only recently learned this because I did a game jam where I was doing the programming. I did it with some collaborators of mine, some friends, including a mutual friend of ours who was the director for Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, James Johnston. And I've never really programmed before like that. We did on, I can't remember the full thing, but it's basically, it pretends to be a Game Boy, essentially, which is really fun. It made me respect the Game Boy so much because that thing is a terrible little system and people got so much out of that thing. Like the Pokemon team are just incredible people. But I was like, oh, I have a lot more creative freedom though if I'm controlling the actors in the scene. Like if I'm controlling how things move. And that really changed because with Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, I would write the words, but then, they would go off to the director who would be putting them in and doing there's a lot more to writing than just the words you put on paper. And that's true for every medium. There's a lot more to how you form, whatever your medium it is than just the words, which was a big lesson that I had to learn.
Yeah, I bet. Was that your first time doing programming?
That was my first time doing anything outside of like Twine. I've tooled around and talked Twine before, but that was my first programming thing, which is that my dad is a programmer, so it was very fun. It's very much a marriage of my parents' two careers is to write video games.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
you can connect with them on those levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wish I could remember the name of the program, but it's a visual programmer, so you can it's very user friendly. I have some baseline knowledge of coding, but this is my first like game programming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and actually when I lived out in LA, I did a bunch of like Ruby on Rails kind of stuff, like code meetups, and I was like, this is not for me, because when I look at my dyslexic little brain, when I look at a pile of of text wall of code, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, I can't tell this part. But the visual programming language, I was like, oh, like I can just visualize things, like I can space them out as much as I want. That was really nice. We used something similar for the back end in PML. We used a variant of a different program that was proprietary, but it was like, oh, I can like look at it and it would show. So PML is mostly, Pixel Puzzle Makeout League is mostly a linear game, even though you can make different choices, but like there's options, but they're all bushes. They all loop back to the main branch.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to split. So when we had every line was its own little square basically on this visual graph, which this is a novel length visual novel. So it was a very big, very, very big file, but that was like a way we laid things out so that I could look at it and James could look at it, because neither of us are programmer types. We both dabble, but neither of us are like, that's not my bliss.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. So what would you say makes compelling dialogue?
I mean, it definitely depends on what you're going for, right?
Yeah.
So like you're gonna think about what is your genre? Like where am I going? Like some people love doing realistic dialogue. I am not one of those people unless I'm specifically writing for that. Like for Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, I went in being like, they're gonna talk kind of like translated anime characters, not in like I'm trying to do a translated anime. I want to trick people to think this is a Jap, but like that kind of over the top, joke after joke kind of comedy style, was the tone we were going for with Pixel Puzzle Makeout League. Dialogues definitely is my favorite thing to write, period. Whatever I'm writing, dialogue is my thing. There definitely is like, the basic how you do dialogue is like read it out loud and stuff like that, which is totally true. But when you're writing something that's not going to be spoken out loud, I think it can be much better to think more about how is this going to flow for the reader? What is it going to look like for them? But for me, it's a very musical kind of process. I guess hard to explain, but I don't visualize things very well, but I do hear things really well, like imaginary hearing. So I can do like, this is what this would sound like for a character. Doesn't really make sense. This is one of those things I'm like, how do I do that thing? How do I write all my dazzling dialogue? It's mostly I just write to make myself laugh.
Well, that's definitely what I've seen. The best creators, they do it for themselves, and then other people kind of follow. If you can entertain yourself, then you're getting somewhere.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what was the key of I want to share a fun tip for writing dialogue. I mean, there is a level of, I think all dialogue needs to be conversational, even if it's not written as a person would say it, right? Like one of my favorite things is I love plays. That is because play is dialogue in its purest form, because you cannot do too much complexity. And a lot of plays are written like everybody had 5 minutes to think of their line before they said it, right? It's like the best version of that moment. And that's what I love about playwriting. And there are times for Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, I would bring that in, but I would use it sparingly, because like a play is 2 hours, the game is 10 hours. So you don't want everyone to be as clever as they can be at all times, or those lines won't punch. You need to think about where is the punch line. And I don't even mean as a joke. I mean, literally, like, what's the line that, like, if it's dramatic, what's the gut punch? Like, what is the scene building up to? Think of it like momentum. Every scene is its own mini 3-act structure.
That totally makes sense. The pacing of it all.
I think pacing is also another very, very underthought about part of writing, and it's a harder one to teach. I know because my mom used to teach it, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mom. She was like an adjunct at NYU for a while, and that was her big thing, was talking about pacing.
That's really cool.
That's definitely something I actually still struggle with, is pacing, for sure. And it's hard, and video games are another place where pacing gets harder, because you're not in control completely of how a player will go through a game. I cannot control how long you'll pick up a puzzle. A great example of this is that 2 weeks before we were doing our asset lock on the game, James asked me to write a bunch of lines to play on the side of the screen when people are solving certain puzzles. And we didn't have time to play test this feature really. And I was like, okay, I'll do it based on like how I would play the puzzles. And it turns out that no one ever reads any of those lines, because they go in way too slowly for anyone to see the 2 weeks of work I did.
Oh no.
I think I wrote like 1,000 individual lines, and like no one could see them. I mean, it's what happens. That's just game development. But no one can see them because it is not paced properly with it's not, we don't have any kind of dynamic pacing thing or anything like that. So if someone goes really slowly, you will actually see all the lines. But if you're going quickly, you're never gonna see the lines. So that was a big lesson too. I was like, all right, you can't control players. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Nudge them, but you can't control them.
Would you say there's like a way you could adapt to that on your next project, or is that just something you're gonna have to like?
The next project, well, actually, my possible solutions I would think of is like, so PML didn't have any voice acting, which is fine. I don't really think voice acting is necessary in like an indie game necessarily. Sure. Also, that would deny all the lovely streamers who read all the lines out loud the fun and pleasure. I pop in on streams of the game sometime, and people always read it out loud. And I'm like, I would hate watching this all the time, but this is something people like. So, and people are always charming and sweet about it. But that's the number one thing. It's like, if the lines had been voiced, you would be able to hear them without having to distract yourself from your puzzle to look at the game. Or if they came in over the screen in a different way, or if like the fact that you couldn't see them was part of the game, which was something I toyed with really early on. I was like, what if it's like you're on the date, but she's too distracted by puzzles to pay attention to her date, so you have a quiz at the end. And I was like, that is too complicated, but interesting idea. Put it in the back burner. Yeah, I think the next project, no more Picross. So no more pixel puzzles.
Yeah, did you feel like the story connecting into the puzzles elements? Was that like, how did you approach that, making sure they were harmonious?
Yeah. A lot of that was the director James's work. I did there's a couple of narrative moments. I mean, if anyone listening has played the game, when Crossword is a card trace, I wrote all the puzzle. I was like, here's what the puzzle should be. And like when Picea makes you open up a picnic basket, I wrote all the weird things that fly out of the air. So what I would say is, when the pixel puzzles add to the joke, it's probably me adding those in. Which was really fun. That was one that kind of connects back to what I was saying earlier, where it's when you're programming, you have a lot of creative freedom. Oh, I guess what really is that's narrative design. And so like on Pixel Puzzle Makeout League, I definitely had narrative design work. I was the lead on Sudoku's RuneScape parody. We did that in a game jam, and I was the narrative lead / director of that section, which was really fun. That was a fun experience for me. I definitely think I want to write more with mechanics in mind, and with the medium in mind. Like one of my favorite game writers is Uchi Koshi, the director of like 999 and the Sonian Files. I'm so excited for the sequel coming out this summer because that game is one of my favorites. And he really likes to use the medium to do twists. And sometimes those twists are crazy stupid, but they're great still because they are so specific to the moment that you're in. They would not work in anything else. I won't spoil any of them, but they're wild and sometimes they're stupid, but that's the kind of thing I'm really interested in exploring more. And I can't talk about the current project. I am under NDA, but I am very excited because I do have some opportunities for that kind of work, and that's gonna be really fun.
That's very exciting. You mentioned a little bit earlier that you pop in on streamers playing the game. Were there any like reactions to certain moments in the game that surprised you?
Surprised me. Yes, spoiler alert for Pixel Puzzle Makeout League. It's not even full story. There's an option that I add. So in the ending, I did a lot of the writing in this game was that James would come to me with an outline of what he had in mind for like the overall story, and then I would go to him with outlines for like the individual dates, and then we collaborate, and I would do a lot of the heavy lifting on the writing side, because that's the literal act of writing is the thing I excel at. But when I was writing the ending, going off what James had put for me, I was like, oh, well, like, what if you get to the ending choice and you're like, I'm not really feeling this romance thing. So like, I just put in like a no kissing, everybody is my person route. Mm-hmm. And so many people I know were like, this is the canonical ending of the game. Including my mom. My mom was like, I couldn't choose anything but the canon ending. Everyone. I was like, that was a bonus option because I wanted to be thoughtful if you were like, I don't want her to kiss anybody. That was not intended that way. That really surprised me. I like to watch, the one I watch the most is Picea's route, because this is a full disclosure. I think it's really funny, and it's really funny to watch. And that's completely arrogant, like pride speaking, because I did write that entire thing. Some of my funniest parts are things that were just these little tidbits that are added in by Annabelle, the artist, or by James in the programming phase. But Some people really seem into Picea, the puzzle piece. And it's like there's a point where like the irony falls away, and I'm like, no, you're really invested in this puzzle piece. Like, okay, go off. Sure, buddy.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
That's fun. I've never had. I mean, I'm sure I know there are people who don't like the game. That's fine. But I've never seen a streamer who didn't at least was acting who was at the very least respectful. Everyone has been really respectful of the game, and most of them get really converted into "thank you for making this game" crying types, which is the sweetest thing in the world. And I don't have I'm a terrible writer because I cannot describe how it feels to have someone like tell you that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. This is inadequate. Great gratitude for the length of something you've done for me, but thank you so much. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure it must be. So yeah, like, I mean, you were touching on, there's quite a variety of characters in the game. Were there any that were like harder to write for than others?
So like I wrote the roots for Sudoku, crossword, and Picea. So in some ways, chess is the hardest because I didn't write his root. But counterpoint, I have a blast whenever chess would pop up in the main story and I would get to write his dialogue. And I would blast them almost because it was like almost like a lone game. Everyone else had their challenges Picea came the easiest because that kind of balls out weird humor is very much my thing. And I was, I had so much fun, and I was described as people as no one ever told me no, so I just kept going with it. I wrote a sonnet in there. I had just had ankle surgery. I was high on some good drugs, and I wrote a sonnet, and the good legal drugs that you get when you have ankle surgery,
of course,
for the listeners. And I wrote a sonnet, and it was delightful. And Picea gets a mech, and there's a big cat, and all this is just stuff I threw out, and then other people had to do the hard work of making it real. And that's the best part of video game writing, is going, cool thing happens, and then it's other people's job. They have to figure out the specifics of it. You're just like, I think it's a lot like comic writing in that way, where it's like, oh, here's a cool explosion, and the artist gets, and they're like, why did you do this to me? I don't understand. But for difficulty, Sudoku and crossword both had big challenges. Sudoku, because I didn't know who she was until I started writing her. This is a big thing for me. I have trouble, but I get my best feel for a character when I'm writing, though. I don't do a lot of preliminary prep. Between doing Pixel Puzzle Makeout League and now, I actually had to learn how to do character bibles because I've been working with larger teams. And it's like, oh, well, now it's not just me and James. I do actually have to be able to describe this to someone else. So that was a difficulty with her. But then crossword was really difficult because crossword's probably the character who's most like me. I took the most of myself out, like my own insecurities, and I was like, cool, I'm going to give these to you, sir. Which that's kind of how writing always works for me with characters. It's like I give them little pieces of myself, and I'm like, here, you can have this, and you can have that, and you can have all these, and I'll mix them up with some other stuff that isn't me. But for me, I always have to have a root of a real emotion that I understand. And for him, it's knowing a lot of random things is not a super useful ability. And it was a lot of, because I was in my mid-20s when I started writing this, and now I'm almost 30. It was a lot of my job anxiety, where it was like, cool, I did all this college. What is my actual skill? What do I actually know how to do? It was a lot of those insecurities, I think, come out in crossword. Also, he's the least popular character, I think, and he's my sweet little baby boy, so that's kind of sad. But that's my mom likes him best, so.
I definitely, I'll admit, I haven't finished the game, I'm sorry to say, but from what I played, yeah, I focused on his route. He's good, and Animal made him super hot, and I really appreciate that for everyone. That's what I said. I was like, damn, my boy looks good. Yeah, I love him. No. Yeah, go play our game. What are you doing talking to me? I'm joking. I'm joshing. No problems.
Besides, this isn't my mom's favorite game. My mom's favorite game is Animal Crossing. She was like, I like your game second, though. I'm like, thanks, Mom. Thanks so
wow.
much. My Twitter bio is the way it is.
So we should probably go to our musical break now. Lex, stay right there. And we are going to be listening to the track Static by Kono Neko. So enjoy that, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Pixel Pizza. You just listened to Static by Kono Neko, and we are back with Lex Oberwetter talking about Pixel Puzzle Makeout League and more. So I guess, I feel like we've talked about most of the game. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on that was like
Oh no, that's old news, buddy. I'm ready to move on. Choo choo. It was a great game, great experience. Yeah, I feel like I will always. Literally always going to be my first game that I made, so it'll always be very special to me.
What are your hopes for the next year to come? Obviously, that you can talk about for like your goals as a writer.
Well, as a writer, My biggest goal right now is I'm trying to actually finish up a novel, to do some, independent creative work. So we'll see where that goes. And then, but with games, honest and truly, the reason I have a day job is so that my games work can be my fun. I mean, even though, it's work, I'm getting paid. I've got to file my taxes about it. I've just done my taxes, and man, no one warned me that freelancing really bites you in the ass when you hit tax season. Kids, if you're listening and you're freelancing, you always put 30% aside so that when the tax man comes, you're not caught by surprise. It's been a couple of years since I've been caught by surprise, but the first year it was nasty. I was like, I didn't prepare for this at all. That's the shitty part of being an adult is you got to do your taxes.
Right.
But it's I will never stop wanting to improve as a writer, and the only way to do that is to either consume things or to write things, and so I do both. I'm going through some of my gaming backlog, and I'm writing away.
Nice. Is there anything good you've been consuming lately?
I've been, like any of us Nintendo fans, I heard the 3DS and Wii U Shop news and Panic bought.
Oh, right.
So I've been going through some weird choices. I bought Style Savvy.
Oh, that game is good.
Yeah, that game is good. Like I heard like what I heard about it was Azzy has a pretty good localization, and I was like, that's weird. Let's check it out. So I got Style Savvy, the first one on 3DS. Fantastic localization. It's genuinely funny. The first thing that happens in that game is to create your character, it's your manager is describing you to someone else, and like it's like, wow, that was way too descriptive. That was weird how descriptive that was. And then later she's like, oh yeah, I do recognize you by the eyebrow shape. And I was like, yes, I'm here for this. I love that treehouse style. That's definitely was a big like Pixel Puzzle Makeout League inspiration. Like when I mean like it sounds like a translated anime, I mean like it sounds like a treehouse, like the Nintendo treehouse.
Oh yeah. They have a style for sure.
They have a very specific house style that I really like. We actually did. This was the nicest compliment I've gotten, which is that someone from the treehouse staff was like, "Oh, I love this game." That's we wrote it. So
that's amazing. I would be starstruck.
I know. I was. I'm the worst at being like the not reply guy, because it's not a reply guy if someone's complimenting your work, but I'm like the worst at being like, oh, thank you. I should reach out, because I feel like they're gonna know I was cyber stalking my own game name. They're gonna know I was looking for it, which we all do. We all do it. I know, because the I'm not say that. I'm not gonna call out anybody, but it's literally happened to me. I'm like, wow, I did compliment your game. That is quite the like, sir. But no, I'm not gonna call anyone out. But
okay.
Yeah, so I've been playing a lot of 3DS, and also I've been playing one of my favorite localized games and localization teams, Yakuza. I found my copy of the Yakuza 3, 4, 5 trilogy on PS4.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, those are the ones I haven't played. So I've been enjoying those. They are definitely show their age in some places. And also it's a PS3 game on PS4, so they're just certain mini games don't work anymore because they were designed for the PS3 controller, which is not quite the same as the PS4 controller. It's all of stuff, but I love Kazuma Kiryu, as only a lesbian can love a straight Japanese man. He's my precious baby boy, even when he's a grandfather with his baby. So I've been enjoying those. Those are one of my favorite game franchises, and there's the whole 3 games I haven't played, so it's very exciting for me. And then in general, I tend to be a grazer. I go through so many games at once. I just played Rocket Slime, the
Dragon Quest game,
the Dragon Quest DS game, which it's been my 2 playlists forever. Like I said, I just like, oh, the DS library, the 3DS library. I got all these games. Now these are all localized games. None of these games are American. I'm like, I really like the localization of this one too. Love the house style for Dragon Quest. It's true. Great style.
Yeah, 11 had some great writing.
You played anything that's American recently? I'm looking at my games. I have Kirby.
That Kirby is so good.
The new
I want to talk about Kirby.
It's so good. I got it because that's the big game I played. I played Elden Ring, which is the opposite of good writing. I love Elden Ring, but like, oh my god, it's really good. Well, it's really good at what it is, which is confusing. And I played that game for 80 hours. I could not tell you what happened in it. Couldn't do it. But Kirby's perfect and wonderful, and I love. I've always loved Kirby games, but I really love this one.
Yeah.
But I actually got it because I went to return. I got like a physical Elden Ring, and then it was delayed. So I was like, well, I'm going to go buy digital. So I went to return it. Could only do it for credits. So I was like, I'll get Kirby. Now I have Kirby. Yeah, but the new Kirby rules.
It does.
It does feel like it should have come out way earlier in the Switch's life. Because it feels like, it's like a line between Breath of the Wild to Mario Odyssey to Kirby in the Forgotten Land, which is a weird thing, but it totally feels like that in a good way. This is not Breath of the Kirby. This is a Kirby game, straight up, but it's just a very good modern Kirby game that takes some good lessons. I love the Waddle Dee Town. They're so cute.
Yes. Have you gotten the little carnival barker Waddle Dee?
No, I haven't gotten that one yet.
Oh, I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay. Yeah, I finished the first world and I haven't gotten to that because I'm very obsessive. So I'm like, I gotta go get everything in this world and then I can move on. I actually don't know that's possible because some Kirby's games you cannot do that. So that's how I've been doing it. Okay, so that's doable.
100%ing each world one by one.
Exactly. Well, and this one has a percentage bar, which I love. When you turn it on, it's like, here's your how much you've done, and I'm like, yes, tell me exactly how much you've done. I need to know. It's another thing I love. The Yakuza says they have the completion log, so I'm like, cool, I can know everything I can do in this game. I definitely have. I'm not as bad as some people who I live with who love platinuming things.
Oh yeah,
like to complete things as much as I can within my abilities. Because earlier this year, I played one of my new favorite games, which is Resident Evil 2, the remake.
Oh,
that game is so good. I was not expecting it to be as good as it is. The game was just blew me right incredible, and I did like platinum that game. I did everything. I'm not I'm not very good at games typically, unless they're like the Soul series, for some reason I'm really good at. But unless they're those, I'm like not good at them at all. But I played that game for like 2 weeks straight, did everything I could do. I love that game. I'd still play it again. I would play it again right now. I'm like, ooh, I can go play it after this. It's like 2 hours to do a run. It's awesome.
Oh wow. Yeah, do you recommend Elden Ring for someone like me who sucks at Souls games?
I mean, this is the Soul game. This is basically the only Souls game that I would recommend to someone who sucks at Souls games, I guess. Because this is the easiest one. And by easiest, I don't mean that like there's no challenge. I mean that there's the most options to do something different, right? If you get stuck somewhere, you can go do something different, and they're not gonna, the older games, the other games in the series, there's basically 1 or 2 paths you can take, but at the end of each of those paths is gonna be a big boss that you're gonna need to slam your head into eventually until you beat it. And this one, there are certain bosses that, yes, you do have to actually beat to beat the game, but there's always going to be something else you can go do while you try to figure that out. Or there's always going to be some new tactic you can try. There's a lot more options with magic now, and magic is just easier in these games, which is great, though, because I don't use magic. I don't want to. And that was perfectly viable for me. It made the game a little bit harder than it would have been if I used magic, but that's fine because that's how I want to play the game. I also used summons the whole time, so I wasn't like get good noob. I was still using the systems to make things onto the level that I could play at. All Souls games do that to some extent with like the summon system. I don't ever use summons. This is the first game I've used summons in, actually. But that is the way you make your own difficulty in the game. That's one of the reasons, like, it's like people are like, what about an easy one of these games? I'm like, there is one, because it just, you have to know how to play the game. But you can always summon people or NPCs, or your own friends. And in this one, you have a whole bunch more summons you can do. You can do like, well, you can, the number one summon is a mimic of yourself. You summon a second you who knows how to play the game much better than you do. I was like, oh, I can do that. That's cool. I didn't know I had that ability.
Yeah, you can learn from it.
So yeah, I'll recommend this game because it's so popular that in a month or two you can get this game for like $20.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Right, because all new games go real, like new big games on like PS4 go cheap after a couple months. So this is a Nintendo game. You'll be able to get this affordably.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll try basically any game for $20. I'm like, sure, fucking just hand it over. I'll play that. That's how I got into Dark Souls in the first place.
Did you play the Guardians of the Galaxy game?
No, it's on my list because it's all
that is fantastic writing. So I would really recommend.
I really want to. Yeah, because it's on Xbox Game Pass now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Heck yeah, I will totally get it. I love Game Pass. Game Pass is so awesome. It's really good for. Well, I don't know if it's really good for indies, but it's great for playing indies because like all the Humble Bundle games are on there. Like the games they publish.
Yeah.
So I was able to play like Unpacking on there, which is like Unpacking's like a really cool game. I just said I'd play anything for $20. I wouldn't pay $20 for that game. I'd pay money for it. I just wouldn't pay the asking price of $20 is just a bit much for a game I played in 2 hours. But like if you're a movie price, if you're a movie length game, maybe a movie priced game. But that is a different conversation. Wonderful game though. No shade on that game.
For sure. All right. So I guess one other question I had related to like game making that I like to ask is there something about your particular process that nobody knows?
My process is so bad. My big ADHD brain has so much trouble focusing. It's my process used to be drink too much coffee and ride the hyper focus train through. I would always just go to Cafe Nero near my old place. I wrote most of the game there. I think the thing that is the weirdest about my writing style is that I don't draft very much. Not because my first draft is so perfect, but because I think about what I'm writing so much that I've gone through like 3 drafts in my head before I'm actually writing something. So I tend to do at most 2 drafts of something. And by drafts, I mean like rewrites before hitting that final version. Not touch-ups though. I do touch-ups forever. I think PML is being touched up to the day we send it out. Because I would reread the script and be like, that should be a different word. I can tighten this up here. I can tighten up there. It's, it's like, it's true what they say. It's just that, things aren't done. They're just hit deadlines.
Right. Yeah, I remember hearing that with Dragon Quest XI, like when it came out, it didn't have voice acting because Yuji Horii was working on the script until the very last minute.
Oh my God, that makes so much sense. It's another game I love.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense though. I understand that feeling deeply. If I had my way, no one would ever see anything I write because I could always make it a little bit better. But I think forcing yourself to let go is one of those very important lessons.
Absolutely. And so I think my last question is, of course, the Pixel Pizza question. What is your favorite pizza place?
Ooh. I'm going back in my head to like, okay, define, this is a very writer question. Define favorite. Are we talking about like favorite as in like, just like the pizza that I had the most fondness for, or the pizza I think is the tastiest? Because they're 2 different things.
That's a very good question. I think fondness. I think what's like your comfort pizza?
Yeah. Cheap ass dollar pizza, Two Brothers Pizza in New York City. $1, you go there, you had a bit to drink. Or if you're me in high school, you are going to D&D afternoon snack. Two Brothers Pizza, NYC, $1 slice, and it still is, which I was in, I'm from NYC originally. And I was visiting friends there over Christmas, and I was so happy because I was like, oh man, did inflation ruin dollar pizza? No, still there. Tastes like cardboard, best thing in the world. That's what I was to say. I'm like, New York doesn't have the best pizza, that does have the cheapest per slice.
Correct. Most convenient.
It's the most convenient pizza. Look, best pizza I had was in Hartford, Connecticut, which is a very New England answer because everyone knows Hartford, Connecticut has the best pizza. Or New Haven. New Haven also has really good pizza. Why does Connecticut have good pizza? It's weird. I don't like this.
Yeah, Mystic Pizza. My favorite pizza place is from Connecticut. I talked about it on the last episode, Frank Pepe's.
Frank Pepe's also really good.
Yeah.
My parents moved out there a couple years, I guess almost 10 years ago now.
Wow.
So it is like a delightful overture of all the great pizza places in Connecticut. That's why I'm like, I will admit that New York does not have the best pizza because it's all in Connecticut for some reason. Man,
a misnomer. All right, so I think that about wraps up what I had in mind. So Lex, where can people keep track of what you're up to?
You can follow me at Twitter. My Twitter handle is Lex Get Dangerous, like Darkwing Duck's slogan, but it's my name, Lex. It's also my itch.io handle if you want to go play my silly little game jam games. And you, of course, check out Pixel Puzzle Makeout League on Steam and Switch.
Yeah. Check it out.
This is great fun. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for joining me. So we're going to end it off, and we're going to play our last song from Kono Neko called Nostalgia. So listeners, we will see you next week. Thank you again, Lex. And this signing off for Pixel Pizza.